A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. 4 billion. That is the number of views the hashtag SlothLife surpassed on TikTok by the end of last year. Think about that for a second. We are talking about a creature that spends 18 hours a day motionless, whose greatest physical feat is occasionally not falling out of a tree while defecating, and yet it is outperforming almost every high-octane, high-production trend on the internet. Today's prompt from Daniel is about exactly this. The sloth's transformation from a biological curiosity into a full-blown internet legend and a mascot for our collective burnout.
It is a massive shift in the cultural zeitgeist, Corn. For centuries, the sloth was literally the poster child for one of the 7 deadly sins. Naturalists like Georges Buffon in the 18th century described them as miserable mistakes and imperfection personified. But fast forward to 2026, and we are seeing the opening of Sloth World in Orlando, the world's first dedicated slotharium. We have moved from pitying them to idolizing them. By the way, a quick shout out to our scriptwriter today. Google Gemini 3 Flash is powering this episode.
I love that. A hyper-fast AI writing about the slowest mammal on Earth. There is some poetic irony there. But seriously, Herman, why now? Is this just the algorithm feeding us cute animal videos because we are all tired? Or is there something more mechanical happening in our brains when we watch a sloth move at 15 centimeters per minute?
It is both, but the biological side is what fascinates me. We often frame the sloth's pace as a defect, but it is actually an extreme evolutionary specialty. They have the lowest metabolic rate of any non-hibernating mammal. Their digestion is so slow, it can take a full month just to process a single leaf. In a world where we are constantly told to optimize and hustle, the sloth is the ultimate contrarian. It survives not by being faster or stronger, but by being the most efficient energy saver in the canopy.
Right, but the internet doesn't care about metabolic rates. It cares about the vibe. When I see a video from an account like Sloth City, which, side note, went from 10,000 to 2 million followers in record time, I am not thinking about leaf fermentation. I am thinking, man, I wish I could just hang there and not respond to an email for 3 weeks. It feels like slow TV on steroids.
That slow TV element is key. There was a fascinating study from the University of California, Berkeley in 2024. They found that viewing slow-moving animals for just 5 minutes reduced self-reported stress levels by 15%. There is a neurological mirroring happening. Our sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight mode that most of us are stuck in during the work week, actually de-escalates when we observe the rhythmic, deliberate movements of a sloth. It is a digital sedative.
It is funny you say deliberate. I always thought they were just lazy, but you are saying every move is a calculation. It is like they are playing a high-stakes game of the floor is lava, but the lava is just using too many calories.
Precisely. Well, not precisely, but you get the point. If a sloth moves too fast, it risks burning more energy than its low-calorie diet of cecropia leaves can provide. It is an energy economy. Humans live in an attention economy, where we feel we have to spend every waking second being productive or consuming information. The sloth lives in a world where spending is the enemy. Watching them provides a subconscious permission slip for us to stop spending our own mental energy for a moment.
So we are essentially using them as a biological proxy for the rest we aren't allowed to have. It makes sense why the Use Sloth Life trend exploded right as hustle culture started to feel like a suicide pact. But it has gone way beyond just watching videos, hasn't it? Daniel mentioned the global sloth-loving community, and some of this stuff gets pretty intense.
It is a full-blown subculture. You have the sloth lovers groups on Facebook with over 500,000 members, but then you have the extreme end, the sloth cosplay. We are seeing people at conventions like Comic-Con or dedicated meetups wearing these incredibly detailed, full-body sloth suits. And they don't just wear the suit, they stay in character, they move slowly, they stay still for hours. It is almost a form of performance art, or a secular version of a silent retreat.
I have seen those. It is hilarious, but also kind of deep. It is like they are cosplaying as freedom from expectations. If you are dressed as a sloth, nobody expects you to be on. You don't have to be witty. You don't have to be fast. You just have to be. It is the ultimate social shield.
There is a psychological term for this, transitional objects or comfort identities. By embodying the sloth, people are reclaiming their right to be off-center, as we might say. It is a rejection of the hyper-optimized human. But there is a second-order effect here that we should talk about, the commodification of this slowness.
You mean like the sloth speed productivity planners? I saw those online. It is the most ironic thing I have ever heard of. A planner designed to help you do less?
It is the wellness industrial complex in action. We take a symbol of natural, effortless rest and we turn it into a product to help us rest better so we can eventually go back to working harder. It is a bit of a paradox. You have sloth-themed yoga retreats where the goal is to be as still as possible, but you are paying $3,000 for the privilege. It raises questions about whether we are actually learning from the sloth or just wearing its skin to feel better about our frantic lives.
It feels a little like the hands-free mama blog post Daniel mentioned, where the author realized she spent her whole life saying, hurry up to her kids. We have reached a point where we have to look at a literal animal to remind us that hurry up isn't a biological requirement for existence. But does this fandom actually help the sloths, or are we just loving them to death?
That is the big question. The Sloth Institute in Costa Rica is a great example of the positive side. They have been able to leverage this internet fame into massive funding for real-world conservation. They use the cute factor to protect the habitat, which is crucial because sloths are incredibly vulnerable to deforestation. They can't exactly run away from a chainsaw. So, the viral fame provides a charismatic megafauna shield for the entire ecosystem.
Charismatic megafauna? That is a fancy way of saying too cute to let go extinct. But sloths aren't even traditionally cute in the way a panda is. They have those weird long claws. They are often covered in green algae, which I heard is actually its own tiny ecosystem. And they look like they haven't showered since the Pleistocene.
That algae is fascinating, by the way. It is a symbiotic relationship. The algae provides camouflage, and the sloth actually eats some of the algae for extra nutrients. They are literally walking gardens. And you are right, they are ugly cute. That is part of the appeal. They are weird, and in 2026, weird is relatable. We have moved past the era of wanting everything to be sleek and perfect. We want things that are authentic and, frankly, a bit messy.
I can relate to the walking garden vibe on a Sunday morning. But let's get practical for a second. If I am a listener and I am feeling that hustle culture burnout, and I am looking at these 4 billion sloth videos, what is the takeaway? Do I just buy a sloth onesie and call it a day?
I think the real takeaway is what I call sloth thinking. It is the practice of deliberate, non-productive time. In the same way a sloth conserves energy to survive, we need to conserve decision energy to stay sane. We should be scheduling sloth blocks in our calendars, times where the goal is explicitly to do nothing. No scrolling, no learning, no self-improvement, just metabolic stillness.
I love the idea of sloth thinking. It sounds like a great excuse for my afternoon nap. But seriously, it is about respecting our own biological limits. We aren't machines. Even the most advanced AI like the one writing this doesn't have a body that gets tired. But we do. We are primates, and we are trying to live like processors.
And we have to be careful about how we consume sloth content. Following an account that posts slow content is great, but if you are scrolling through 1,000 slow videos in an hour, you are still engaging in the high-speed dopamine loop. You are hurrying to relax. The real challenge is to turn off the screen and actually emulate the sloth's pace in the physical world.
That is the sloth strategy. Move so slow that the stress can't find you. It is a survival skill for the modern era. Before we wrap this up, I want to thank our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, for keeping us on track even when we want to move at sloth speed. And a big thanks to Modell for providing the GPU credits that power the back end of this show.
If you found this dive into the Slothverse interesting, we have a whole archive of deep dives into the weird and the wonderful. Find us at myweirdprompts.com for the RSS feed and all the ways to subscribe.
This has been My Weird Prompts. Next time you feel the urge to hustle, just remember, there is a sloth out there somewhere that hasn't moved in 4 hours, and it is doing just fine.
Probably better than fine. It is probably having a very efficient nap. See you next time.
See ya.
Wait, Corn, did you mention the Sloth Speed Productivity Planners again? I still can't get over that.
I did. I actually bought one. It is just 365 blank pages.
Perfect.
All right, let's get out of here before the algae starts growing on us.
Too late for me. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Seriously, though, the algae is a great source of protein.
Stop it, Herman. We are done.
Okay, truly done. Goodbye.
Silence.
Begs out.
Says out.
Corn, wait.
No, Herman. The show is over.
I just wanted to say 15 centimeters per minute.
I know. We said it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Silence.
Silence. Silence.
All right. Today's prompt from Daniel really hit home. You know, in 2025, the hashtag SlothLife surpassed 4 billion views on TikTok. That is a staggering number for an animal that effectively does nothing. It is not just cute animal content anymore. It is a cultural signal. We are looking at a mass rejection of the hustle's ethos, and the sloth has become the unofficial mascot for everyone who is just done.
It is a fascinating shift, Corn. Herman Poppleberry here, by the way. For centuries, the sloth was the ultimate symbol of failure. It was literally named after a deadly sin. But now, we are seeing the opening of Sloth World in Orlando in February 2026. We have moved from viewing them as miserable mistakes, as 18th century naturalists called them, to seeing them as biological role models. And fun fact, Google Gemini. 3Flash is writing our script today, which is a bit ironic given we're talking about the slowest creatures on the planet.
I like the irony. A high-speed AI analyzing a low-speed mammal. But it makes sense. We are talking about a cultural artifact here, not just a zoological one. The sloth is a lens. It is how we examine our own relationship with productivity and this digital pressure to always be on. Why do you think the algorithm loves them so much? Is it just the contrast?
It is the contrast, but it is also the physiology. Humans are wired for constant, low-level alertness, what we call continuous partial attention. Sloths are the opposite. They represent extreme energy conservation. They have the lowest metabolic rate of any non-hibernating mammal. Their digestion is so slow it can take a full month for them to process a single leaf. When we watch a sloth move at 15 centimeters per minute, it triggers a physiological response in us.
Right, because our brains are screaming go, 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 and the sloth is just hanging there like, nah, I am good. It is like slow TV, but with a face you can relate to. There was that Berkeley study in 2024 that found watching slow-moving animals for just 5 minutes reduced stress by 15%. It is literally a digital sedative.
It really is. And the attention economy we live in is the perfect predator for our mental health. The sloth lives in an energy economy. If it moves too fast, it burns more calories than it can replace, and it dies. It is a high-stakes game of being still. We perceive that as laziness, but it is actually a highly evolved, high-precision survival strategy. Watching them provides a subconscious permission slip for us to stop our own metabolic hustle for a second.
I think that is why accounts like Sloth City exploded. They went from 10,000 to 2 million followers in 18 months, just by posting 15-second clips of sloths eating. It is comfort content, but it has evolved past just watching videos. Daniel mentioned the global sloth-loving community, and this is where it gets a bit weird, Herman. We are talking about sloth cosplay meetups.
Oh, the cosplay is a real phenomenon. You see it at major conventions now. People spend thousands of dollars on these hyper-realistic, full-body sloth suits. But they don't just walk around in them, they perform the slowness. They will stand in one spot for 3 hours. It is almost a form of meditative performance art. The psychological driver there is the desire to embody that perceived freedom. When you are in the sloth suit, the world's expectations of you drop to zero.
It is the ultimate do not disturb sign. If you are a sloth, nobody is asking you for a status report or wondering why you haven't replied to their text. But there is a flip side to this, right? The wellness industrial complex has entered the chat. I have seen sloth speed productivity planners. That has to be the most contradictory product ever made.
It is the peak of commodification. We take the animal that represents the total absence of planning and turn it into a tool to optimize our rest so we can work harder later. It is a bit of a paradox. You also see sloth-themed yoga retreats and mindfulness apps using sloth imagery. It raises a question of authenticity. Are we actually learning to be slower, or are we just buying the aesthetic of slowness to feel better about our fast lives?
It feels a bit like the hands-free mama blog post Daniel mentioned. The day I stopped saying hurry up, we have reached a point where we have to look at a literal animal to remember that hurry up isn't the only way to exist. But let's look at the second-order effects. Does this internet fame actually help the animals?
In some cases, yes. The Sloth Institute in Costa Rica has seen a massive surge in donations and merchandise sales, which directly funds habitat protection. Because sloths are charismatic megafauna, even if they are weird-looking, they act as an umbrella species. By protecting the sloth's canopy, we protect thousands of other less marketable species. The viral rise of the sloth is literally saving rainforests.
So being ugly cute is a survival trait in the age of Instagram. I mean, they aren't traditionally pretty. They have those long claws. They have green algae growing in their fur, which is its own ecosystem, right? And they look like they are perpetually squinting at a bright light.
That algae is a great point. It is a symbiotic relationship. The algae gives them camouflage, and some research suggests they actually consume the algae for extra nutrients. They are walking gardens, and that squint is actually part of their charm. They look content. In a world of high-definition anxiety, a creature that looks perpetually satisfied with a single leaf is a revolutionary icon.
So, if we are looking for practical takeaways here, because we like to give the listeners something to actually do, what is the sloth strategy for a human in 2026?
I think the first move is sloth thinking. You have to schedule deliberate, non-productive time, not rest, so you can work, but time where you are, mimic the sloth's energy conservation strategy. Observe, reflect, and do not move. It combats decision fatigue. If a sloth can spend a month digesting a leaf, you can spend 20 minutes digesting a thought without checking your phone.
I like that. Schedule a sloth block, and maybe be more mindful about digital diet. If your feed is full of hustle culture influencers telling you to wake up at 4 in the morning to grind, maybe mute them and follow a sloth sanctuary instead. Let the algorithm feed you some of that 15% stress reduction.
And for the love of everything, if you go to Costa Rica, don't pay for a sloth selfie with someone holding a wild animal. Support ethical tourism. Look for organizations like the Sloth Institute that focus on habitat, not just cute interactions. Authentic appreciation means respecting the animal's need for distance and stillness.
Good call. So is this a temporary trend? Are we going to be over sloths by 2027 and move on to, I don't know, the slow-moving snail?
I think as long as AI and automation keep accelerating the pace of digital life, the human need for these slow, natural counterpoints will only grow. The sloth isn't just a trend, it is an anchor. It reminds us of our biological roots in a world that feels increasingly synthetic.
It is a pretty heavy burden for a creature that just wants to hang upside down and eat hibiscus flowers. But hey, if they can handle a month of digestion, they can handle being our cultural icons. Thanks as always to our producer Hilbert Flumingtop for keeping things moving even when we are talking about standing still.
And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show. This has been My Weird Prompts.
If you're enjoying the show, leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. It helps us reach more people who might need a little more sloth in their lives.
Find us at myweirdprompts.com for the full archive. Stay slow, everyone.
See ya. Fades out.
Wait, Corn, one more thing. Did you know sloths can swim 3 times faster than they can move on land?
Of course you had to get one more fact in. We are done, Herman.
I'm just saying, they have hidden depths.
Goodbye, Herman.
Goodbye.
Silence.
Silence. Silence.
Alright, let's dive into this. Today's prompt from Daniel is about the sloth's rise to internet legendary status, and honestly, the numbers are wild. In 2025, the hashtag #SlothLife surpassed 4 billion views on TikTok. Think about that. 4 billion views for an animal that spends most of its life essentially pretending to be a mossy branch.
It is a massive cultural shift. Corn, Herman Poppleberry here. We are seeing the sloth move from being a biological curiosity to a full-blown icon of the anti-hustle movement. It is actually quite profound. We are even seeing the first dedicated slotharium opening in Orlando this February. By the way, today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash, which is writing our script.
A fast AI writing about a slow animal. I love it. But seriously, why the sloth? We have plenty of slow animals. Why didn't the snail or the tortoise become the mascot for burnout?
I think it is the relatability. Sloths have faces that look vaguely human, that permanent, slightly dazed smile. But technically, it is about the energy economy. Humans are currently trapped in an attention economy where we are constantly stimulated. The sloth is the ultimate antithesis to that. They have the lowest metabolic rate of any non-hibernating mammal. Their survival depends on not reacting, not rushing, and not wasting energy.
It is like slow TV, but with a soul. I remember that Berkeley study from 2024. It showed that watching slow-moving animals for just 5 minutes can drop your stress levels by 15%. It is basically digital Valium.
Well, I should say, that is the core of it. We are physiologically wired to mirror what we see. When we watch a sloth move at 15 centimeters per minute, our own sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for fight or flight, actually starts to de-escalate. It is a biological permission slip to slow down.
But it has gone way beyond just watching videos, hasn't it? Daniel mentioned the global sloth-loving community, and things get pretty intense there. We are talking about sloth cosplay meetups at Comic-Con. I have seen photos. People in these hyper-realistic suits just hanging out.
It is a form of radical stillness. People are spending thousands on these suits not just for the look, but for the experience. When you are in a sloth suit, you are socially allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to be off-center. It is a rejection of the hyper-optimized human identity. It is people reclaiming their right to be unproductive.
It is funny, but also kind of sad that we need a suit to feel like we can move slowly. But then you have the commodification side. I saw sloth speed productivity planners the other day. It feels like the wellness industrial complex is just trying to sell us back our own rest.
It is a total paradox. We take an animal that represents the complete absence of hustle and turn it into a brand to help us optimize our downtime so we can go back to the grind. It is the same thing with sloth-themed yoga retreats. It raises a real question about whether we are actually learning from the sloth or just consuming its vibe as a temporary fix.
It reminds me of that hands-free mama post, the day I stopped saying hurry up. We are so addicted to speed that we have to turn slow into a scheduled event. But what about the real-world impact? Does 4 billion views on TikTok actually help a sloth in Costa Rica?
It is a double-edged sword. On one hand, organizations like the Sloth Institute have seen a massive increase in funding. Sloths are charismatic megafauna, which means they get people to open their wallets. By protecting sloth habitats, we end up protecting entire ecosystems that people wouldn't otherwise care about. They are umbrella species.
Charismatic is a generous word for a creature that grows green algae in its fur and only goes to the bathroom once a week. They are ugly cute at best.
But that is part of it. They are authentic. The algae is actually a symbiotic relationship. It provides camouflage and even a bit of extra nutrition. They are walking, breathing gardens. In a world of filtered, perfect Instagram lives, a messy, slow, algae-covered sloth feels more real to people.
So, if we are looking for the so what here, what can we actually take away from the sloth? Besides buying a onesie.
I think the real takeaway is sloth thinking. It is the practice of deliberate, non-productive time. We need to schedule sloth blocks, times where the goal is explicitly to conserve decision energy. If a sloth can spend a month digesting a single leaf, we can spend 20 minutes without checking a notification. It is about respecting our biological limits.
I like that. Respect the limit. And maybe being more careful about ethical tourism. If you are going to see a sloth, don't pay for a selfie where someone is holding one. That is incredibly stressful for them. Support the organizations that are actually doing habitat work.
Right? True appreciation is about letting them be still. It is a lesson for how we should treat ourselves too.
Well, this has been a surprisingly deep dive into a very slow topic. Thanks to our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, for keeping us on track.
And thanks to Modal for the GPU credits that keep this operation running. This has been My Weird Prompts.
If you liked this episode, follow us on Spotify or wherever you listen. It helps us get the word out.
Find everything else at myweirdprompts.com. Stay slow, everyone.
See ya. See ya.
Two fades out.
Fades out.
Corn, did you know sloths can retain their grip even after they die?
Herman, we are trying to end on a high note.
I thought it was a cool fact about muscle tension.
Goodbye, everyone.
Oh,
Silence. Silence.
silence.
All right, let's get into it. Today's prompt from Daniel is about the sloth's incredible transformation into an internet legend. It is honestly one of the weirdest cultural pivots of the last decade. In 2025, the hashtag SlothLife topped 4 billion views on TikTok. We are talking about a creature that defines doing nothing, becoming a global superstar in an era defined by doing everything.
It is a fascinating case of cultural mirroring, Corn. Herman Poppleberry here. For centuries, the sloth was a punchline for naturalists. They called them miserable mistakes. But in 2026, we are seeing the opening of Sloth World in Orlando. We have gone from mocking them to literally building temples to them. By the way, today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash.
A fast AI writing about a slow animal. There is a joke in there somewhere. But why the sloth? Why now? Is it just that we are all burnt out and looking for a mascot that doesn't move?
It is exactly that, but it is also biological. Humans are trapped in an attention economy, which is high stress and high speed. The sloth lives in an energy economy. They have the lowest metabolic rate of any non-hibernating mammal. Their whole survival strategy is based on energy efficiency, moving so slowly that they don't burn more than they eat. When we watch them, it triggers a physiological response.
I remember that study from 2024 at Berkeley. Watching slow-moving animals for just 5 minutes reduce stress by 15%. It is like a biological reset button. Our brains see the sloth and suddenly realize, oh, the world isn't actually ending if I don't move for 10 seconds.
It is slow TV with a face, and it has spawned this massive global community. Daniel mentioned the extreme sloth lovers and the cosplay meetups. I have seen these at conventions. People in these hyper-realistic suits just moving at a snail's pace through the crowds. It is a form of performance art, but it is also a social shield. If you are a sloth, nobody expects you to be productive.
It is radical stillness. But then you get the commodification, which is where it gets a bit cynical for me. Sloth, speed, productivity planners? That is just hustle culture wearing a sloth costume. It is trying to sell us the aesthetic of being slow while still making sure we get our to-do list done.
It is a paradox for sure. We see the same thing with sloth-themed yoga retreats. But on the positive side, this viral fame is doing wonders for conservation. The Sloth Institute in Costa Rica uses this charismatic megafauna status to protect entire ecosystems. They are umbrella species. By saving the sloth, we save everything else in the canopy.
Even the green algae growing in their fur. I heard that is its own ecosystem.
It is. It is a symbiotic relationship. Camouflage and nutrition. They are walking gardens. And that authenticity, the ugly cute factor, is what makes them so relatable. In 2026, we are tired of perfect. We want messy and slow.
So, what is the takeaway for the listeners? How do we actually apply sloth thinking to our lives without losing our jobs?
It is about sloth blocks. Schedule time where the goal is explicitly energy conservation. No decision making, no scrolling, just stillness. If a sloth can take a month to digest a leaf, you can take 30 minutes to just exist. It combats decision fatigue. And if you are visiting sloth habitats, be an ethical tourist. No sloth selfies with wild animals. Support habitat protection, not animal handling.
Good advice. Let the sloth be a reminder that hurry up is a choice, not a law of nature. Huge thanks to our producer Hilbert Flumingtop for keeping things moving behind the scenes.
And thanks to Modal for the GPU credits. This has been My Weird Prompts.
Follow us on Spotify or your favorite app if you want more of this.
Find everything at myweirdprompts.com. Stay slow.
See ya.
Fetty's out.
D fades out.
Corn, did you know sloths are surprisingly good at holding their breath underwater?
Herman, we are done. No more facts.
Up to 40 minutes. It's incredible.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Silence. Silence.
Silence.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text to speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our